So to talk more about this is Mandy, PwC tax leader. He joins us via Skype. A very good evening to you, Carl, and thank you so much for speaking to us. So what is your point of view of these raft of measures that the president announced? A lot of them obviously are likely to impact on already revised tax revenue prediction.
Yes, it's certainly a significant improvement on what was previously announced. It will go a long way towards providing relief to the businesses that need it, particularly insofar as the accelerated refund of VAT is concerned, the increased deferral of taxes, as well as the SDL relief, skills development relief as well. So those will certainly be of assistance. I am a little concerned that it's not going to be sufficient for any businesses that remain subject to lockdown rules after the end of April. But this will certainly go a long way towards alleviating the worst of the burden.
But I think most importantly, as much as government is doing what it can, the obvious reality is there's only so much it can do. And this against the tax rebates that it's announced. So how is that going to impact our coffers?
Well, there's no doubt it's going to significantly impact our coffers. Just in terms of these relief measures that are proposed, they're looking at a cost of 26 billion rand to the fiscus. But that pales into insignificance when one considers what the revenues that are going to be lost are as a result of the reduced economic growth that we're going to be seeing. And those are going to be anywhere between 100 billion rand and 200 billion rand worth of lost revenues. So it's less of a question of whether government can afford to spend the money and more of a question of whether or not they can afford not to spend the money in order to protect that tax base.
Does it call for a rethink of our tax regime?
Well, fundamentally, our tax system is going to look quite different once this is all done and dusted. And it's going to require a reset in many respects in terms of how we approach taxes. And that's something that we're going to have to be working very closely with government as we move forward on this.
And I want to look at those tax rebates that were announced. What do you think is the final figure that we'll be looking at? We speak about 100,000 companies that have contributed to the Solidarity Fund, about 75,000 individuals themselves who have contributed. But I'm very curious, just in terms of the quantum figure that the estimate will come to.
So if you're looking at the cost, I mean, government has put a cost on this of 70 billion rand in a sense. 44 billion rand of that is really deferral, so it's not a permanent cost, it's just a delay in the payment of taxes. And their permanent cost that they're looking at is 26 billion rand. Whether or not that ends up being correct, I think remains to be seen. I'm a little bit skeptical of the size of some of those numbers that have been put out, particularly in relation to the employment tax incentive relief. But we are in very different times, and any calculations to a large extent are a back of a matchbox calculation in terms of what the true costs are going to be. No one really knows. They really are just broad estimates in terms of what those costs are.
And I just want to look at the various industries which have been impacted. Government was saying that there will be a skills development levy holiday for 4 months, especially, and a 90-day referral for alcohol and tobacco tax excise duty. What will be the relief for them? Because some of them are saying, in fact, I heard one company saying that it's considering suing government because of the massive loss of revenue.
Yeah, so those two issues are quite different to each other. The skills development levy is really, it's just a permanent or a tax holiday insofar as the skills development levy itself is concerned for a period of 4 months. And that will be a benefit broadly all businesses, whether large or small, whatever industry they're in. They will all benefit from that to the extent that they are still paying salaries to employees. And that will be essentially as a 1% saving on their payroll costs. The excise duty issue is slightly different or very, very different in many respects. That is more a case of the alcohol and tobacco manufacturers have actually built up stockpiles, or they've actually disposed of some of their those goods already to ultimately to retailers at the end of the day, you're going to struggle to pay for them. And the excise duties are funded up front by the manufacturers and have to be paid up front by the manufacturers, bearing in mind that they're going to be struggling to collect the revenues insofar as that's concerned. So that's really what that proposal is about, is deferring the payment of that tax to provide some cash flow relief to those manufacturers. And which is completely reasonable if you consider that those industries have not been able to sell goods during the lockdown period.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. From PwC, he's a tax leader there, Kyle Mandy. Let's continue with news on the economic front. So analysts warn that